Several years ago, I remember going through one of the most difficult things that I ever had to endure, and that was going through my own divorce. And it's not one of those things that you ever think you're going to go through. You don't go into a marriage thinking, hey, I hope I have a plan B, right? And for some of you out there listening to this, you might have gone through that same journey. And I share that with you because at that same time, it was the last financial crisis. So not only did I lose my marriage, I lost my home, I lost so many different things. I lost my dignity, and I lost a lot of wealth and assets and things like that. And so I share that because I know right now during this COVID period, it's very difficult for some of you out there. Some of you have been able to thrive. Some of you are very confused, don't know what to do. And some of you are just taking it day by day. And so I want to say thank you for joining me and the other speakers here at the Comeback Champion Summit. And today I'm going to talk about recovering from a financial setback. And so thank you for being here again. My name is Jen Fontanilla. I am a certified money coach. I'm a former financial advisor. I'm a speaker and an author of 6 books. And I'm just thrilled to be here with you to impart some wisdom, hopefully some inspiration, and just kind of help all of us get through this period as we finish out this last quarter of 2020. I know some of you are just like, yes, let's just get on to 2021. And so, in pre-COVID, we were in a world where, we just never thought that this was going to happen. Sure, we've had financial markets crash. Sure, there's been different things that happened over the years, but never in our wildest dreams, I'm sure you can agree with me, did we ever think that there was going to be a global pandemic. I know surely not in our lifetime. I know that there's been some in the past. Obviously, we know about the Spanish flu, but it's just not one of those things where we thought, oh my goodness, this is actually going to happen. I with everything going on, I'm here in Southern California. And so in my part of the world, we're dealing with fires. And, it just seems like there's always something coming up nowadays. And, we had our own lives before. And so here we are in the middle of, the quarantine and COVID. And then we had a financial market crash. And now it's like, what do we do? What do we do? How do I recover from this? What do I do when I feel like I've lost hope? What do I do when I don't even know if I'm going back to my job and all this uncertainty? And so I want to share with you a few things that hopefully will inspire you and encourage you to keep moving forward. So the first one I want to impart on you is to not overreact. And so if you tend to get stressed or you tend to be very, very anxious, in wanting to spend more money in hopes of recovering faster, because sometimes we come across some deals or some things like that. I want you to be careful because that could actually lead to a bigger financial disaster. And so I want you to take the emotions out of it. The interesting thing about money is that a lot of people feel like, oh, it's just numbers. But the more that I do this as a money coach, and let me explain that real quick. So I do financial coaching, and that's like the logistics, the practicals, the spreadsheets, the numbers, the budgets, that type of thing, setting financial goals. The money coaching side of what I do and help clients with is the emotional side, analyzing the emotional behaviors, also looking at the psychology of things. What did we learn from our mom? What did we learn from our dad? And that's what's helped us develop our own money mindset and is actually what affects how we look at our finances today. So our financial decisions stem from that. And so all that said, the way that we have our relationship with money obviously affects how we are, emotionally reacting to our financial situations. And so I know that's hard to say and it's not easy to do. I mean, I know it's easy to say, but not easy to do. But try your best to take the emotions out of it and try to just take a step back and look at it from an objective standpoint. And so when you can get comfortable accepting the loss of whatever it is, maybe you've been laid off, maybe you don't even know when you're going back to your job, maybe you don't even know if you have a job to go back to. It's very important for us to stay focused on practical steps. And so maybe this is a time that you should take to really take a look at, what other income can I bring in? How can I reduce costs? So the first one is don't overreact and take a deep breath and just be like, okay, Because when you can center and ground yourself, I promise you, you're going to be able to think a lot more clearly than when you're running around and just like, I don't know what I'm going to do. It's so really, I know this sounds so simple, but just breathe and just don't overreact. And so the second one is to assess your financial situation. And what do I mean by that? It's, you know, taking a look at all your stuff, laying it on the table. If you have a dining room table, kitchen table, you know, I joke around that the dining table can sometimes become our second office, and there's piles of paperwork everywhere. And so what you want to do is take a look at how much money do you need? You know, even if you can just look at the next quarter, take a look at how much money you need and how much money do you have? What's coming in? Oftentimes I tell clients to assess your situation, and this is a good time. You know, I've been saying this, you know, ever since March, but you know, if I know how it goes, we don't use the time wisely sometimes, but this is a good time. If you haven't done it, take a look what's happening, especially because doesn't it seem like we're just kind of going day by day, what's next? Okay. And in your own state, something different's happening. You know, everybody has been slowly eased into going back into society. And I feel like California was the last in many different ways because we became a hot spot. And so, you know, depending on where you are, your situation could be very volatile or very uncertain. So this is a time to look at your money. This is a time to see what's coming and what's going, what income is still coming in, and what expenses you still have. So assess your financial situation. I know it's something that you may not feel like, oh, I don't even want to do this. I hate doing this, but I promise you, when I just said don't overreact and managing your emotions, this is about the better you can be about getting organized, financially organized, the better you're going to be when it comes to relaxing and not getting emotionally worked up. Because when you know what's happening, what's coming, what's going in terms of the money, you're going to be more calm. You're going to be more confident about what's going on with your situation. Number 3 is build up your emergency fund. Now, when I talk about this, I know there could be a whole range of different situations. It could be, I depleted it, I don't have one anymore, which is the case for many people. Or the other side of it could be, I never even started one. I had the best intentions of starting one. What do I do? If you're in a situation where you did have one and you had to dip into it, obviously this whole entire year has been an emergency in some form or fashion. Find a way to replenish it. And this is why it's so important to go back and assess the situation. Find out is there any discretionary money? Is there anything that we can cut back in so that we can put any extra funds into beefing up the emergency fund again? And so it's so important to do that because this avoids, you know, having to go on credit cards. This avoids having to finding government assistance or whatever those different resources are out there. Now, if you've never had the emergency fund, this is a great time to assess also what can you put away every month. It's really important to build this emergency fund because I know I've made a lot of financial mistakes myself. I know what it's like to be like, oh my gosh, I don't even know how I'm going to pay for that. I don't know, this bill's coming up. I don't even know where that money's going to come from. So I've been there. So I'm definitely speaking from experience. And so nothing I'm telling you isn't something that I haven't gone through myself. And so this is the perfect time it's almost like you have to treat it like a bill. And it's paying yourself first in a sense, even though it's really going to your emergency fund. But it's so important to replenish that. It's so important to get into the habit of building that up so that when the next disaster happens or the next emergency. Now, of course, I am not saying or hoping or wishing that another pandemic is going to come down, but it could be as simple as the water heater went out, or I have to get new tires, or, you know, something dumb happens to us all the time. And then it's like, oh, I got to spend money on something we weren't expecting to. And then those funds end up getting directed to taking care of that problem that happened. Those are those types of situations where you have to use your emergency fund, or where you can use your emergency fund. It's not to buy shoes. It's not to buy, you know, the vacation. It's, you know, and that's a different workshop, but that's why it's so important to allocate different buckets of savings for different purposes and functions. But right now we're talking about recovering from a financial setback. So I'm just really, really stressing the emergency fund. And what's really important about that, they say the recommended benchmark is about 3 to 6 months. But as you can see in the situation that we're currently in, it's going past 6 months. And so I know it's tough. Do your best to at least put some money aside so that you're not dipping into credit cards or other resources like your financial retirement funds or your, you know, anything like that, or any source of money that isn't meant to be for emergencies. Now, it's a different situation if that's all you got, but it's so important to make sure, again, like I said, allocate buckets of money, not literally, but buckets of money for the purpose that you have intended to be used for. Okay, so far, number 1, don't overreact. 2, assess your financial situation. 3, build up that emergency fund or replenish it, okay? The 4th one is create a slimmed down spending plan. And what do I mean by that? When I talk about spending plan, it's the word that I use instead of budget, because people don't like the word budget. It's the same idea. And so a spending plan is just basically telling your money where to go. Many of us do not create this. Many of us do not even follow one. And then, like I said in the beginning, if we don't track it, we don't know where the dollars are going. We don't know where things are supposed to go. And then many of us end up with more bills than income at the end of the month. And that's not a good position to be in. So when you create this this slimmed down version of the spending plan, what I mean by that is, given the situation that we're in, especially if things are super tight and we're trying to recover from a setback, this is a time to also assess, okay, what do I not what do I not need anymore? Well, what do I not want to eat anymore too? You know, and that goes with eating out. Now, I know it's strange. I know here in California, most of the restaurants are only dining outside or takeout. I did actually travel last week outside of California into Denver, and it was like it was actually strange. It was the first time I ate inside a restaurant in months. And so, you know, but I did a video a year ago when I was doing some research, and I realized and I found out that, you know, when I took a look at what people spend their money on and some of the clients that I have worked with, I'm telling you, eating out and entertainment are always the areas in the spending plan where we completely blow it. And then when we take a look at, you know, are we saving adequately? Are we putting away money for retirement or the future? That tends to be a little on the like, we need to do better. And so take a hard, honest look at where the money's going. And so when we look at slimming down this spending plan, it's kind of like, okay, we have our regular budget, but I also want you to create the spending one where you really cut down things, because sometimes that might happen, especially if somebody gets laid off, right? So it's so important to have this version so that if you have to turn to it, it's already created. You're not trying to figure out like, oh, where do we cut now? Where do we, you know, it's almost like here's the 911 version of the spending plan, and now you have it ready. And so also what's very important is that you're not trying to create the spending plan when you're under a lot of stress and duress. And it's, again, it's not a good place. You know, going back to the situation when I was going through my divorce, I can tell you from firsthand experience that when I was under so much stress, I made the stupidest decisions. I talked about it in my book, and so I'm an open book, you know, no pun intended, but I talked about some of the financial situations and problems that I had gone through myself. And I look back, of course, hindsight's 2020, and you realize, oh my gosh, how stupid. But give yourself some grace, because when you are under a lot of emotional stress, we cannot think clearly. And this is why, again, don't overreact. And so, you know, going back to this spending plan that's really slimmed down, you know, it's important to ask yourself, you know, what luxuries can you give up? Are there certain things that you don't really need? Of course, you know, the light at the end of the tunnel is that you can always add these things back into the plan. Okay, so there's some hope for you. I'm not saying completely cut it out, but I'm saying be very mindful of the current situation that you're in, and everybody's going to be in a different space and place. So whatever you have to adjust accordingly to your situation so that you can get back on your feet, adjust so accordingly. Number 5 is DIY, meaning do it yourself. You know, pre-COVID, we were used to outsourcing things. Maybe it was laundry, maybe we had a cleaning lady or a maid come in, or whatever the case may be. And so I say do it yourself, because if you're in a situation where you might not be commuting anymore to work, you might not be working or whatever it is, if you have the opportunity to be at home and take care of some of those things, then that's another area where you can cut back. And so if there's some things like, obviously, and I'm sure you all seen this. How many people did you see start making bread? I remember in the beginning of quarantine and whatnot, so many people were becoming like these gourmet chefs online. I would see so many people cooking, making bread from scratch, and creating these amazing dishes. And so I share that with you because so many people learned how to cook. And so people were saying, I don't even eat out anymore. And so this is not to say like, oh, don't support the restaurants. And I'm not talking about that. This is about, again, if you are in a situation where you really need to cut back, then learning how to cook or doing, the chores that you used to outsource or whatnot, that's another area that you might want to take a look at, okay? Number 6 is set priorities. So after you take a look at your situation, it's so important to find out what your priorities are, meaning what bills need to get paid. Have you created the spending plan? And if you have, are you following it? This is a great time to revisit the spending plan if you have had one, and determine what needs to be cut out. Where can you cut back? What can you cancel? Are there memberships that you're not using? I know here in California, the whole gym situation has been like a big mess. And there was a period of time where we could go for 2 weeks and then we were told we couldn't go. And so I give you that example because there's some memberships that you might want to look into to find out, like, what's the situation? Is this on pause? Is this on freeze? Am I going to be credited? Are my payments being put on hold? But you have to call and you need to communicate and find out, because the more money that you can allow going to proper places like insurance or your spending plan, I'm sorry, not the spending plan, but your bills or emergency fund, then that's money that doesn't need to go to memberships that could have been put on pause. Okay, so take a look at those areas in your situation that you could cut back on. And here's the thing too, do not skimp on insurance. I know there might be a temptation to like, well, I don't need that, I won't get sick and whatnot. I'm telling you, do not risk that. Because if, it could be very devastating and very risky should something happen. And then it's like, why did I do that? And then you'll end up paying way more than had you just made sure that there was coverage. So that is so important. I want to make note of, do not skimp out on the insurance part. So 7 is create a financial plan. And I know we talked about the spending plan, but 7 is creating a financial plan. So if you have a spouse, work together, get on board, get on the same page. Far too often, there's, I have this whole mantra about both spouses need to be on the same page. There shouldn't be one person that just handles everything and then the other partner has no idea what's going on. Now, I will say that one person can be the manager because they might happen to be the one that likes doing it. They like organizing the bills. They have a better understanding of money. But for the other person, that is not an excuse for you to not know what's going on. And I used to teach workshops for women going through a divorce. And I remember always saying, ladies, especially if you're in a situation where, you do not understand what's going on in the financial household that you're in, that's a very dangerous place that you're putting yourself in, because one of two things are going to happen. Either he's going to die, your partner is going to die, or he's going to leave you, like in a divorce situation. And I saw that happen time and time again. And I'm not just, blaming ladies. I know some men who do not even touch the finances. So it's both sides. It's one or the other. But the main point that I'm trying to make is that when you're trying to create this financial plan, that you definitely need to be on the same page. You need to know where the documents are. You need to have these meetings where you come together, you understand what's happening. You both know what bills are coming up. I've seen this situation too, where one person thinks that certain bills are getting paid, and then the other person's saying like, well, I thought you were taking care of that. And so that tells me, when I hear those kinds of conversations, that tells me that you're not having meetings, you're not on the same page, you both don't know what's going on. It leads to wasted money in fees, in interest, and then it causes fights. And then there's a lot of bitterness. And especially if we're all quarantined and everything, we don't need to create more tension in the environments that we're in. So just make sure you're planning ahead, again, what money is coming in, and really take a look at what do we need to do over the next quarter? What do we need to do to finish out 2020? And get on the same page. You know, one thing that I suggest in my book is to have money dates, especially if you have a partner. And if you're single, have it with yourself. Sit down and make sure you're taking a look at what's going on. It can be 15 minutes. Just do a quick overview. Hey, what's coming up? Is there anything that I need to know about? How are you feeling about things? Is there something that you want to share? And I think it's also good to remember to dream. You know, sometimes we feel like, oh, this is so doom and gloom, we're in the hole. It's like, it's so good to dream. Don't forget to dream. That make that part of your financial plan, make that part of your goals, where you dream and you sit down and you just write things that you want to accomplish. Because I promise you, you know, you do the right things, you don't have to stay in the situation. It can totally improve. And so when you allow yourself to dream, it gives you this inspiration and this encouragement to keep pushing forward. Let's get out of this hole. Let's be encouraged to save. Let's save this money so that we can do the things that we want to. And though it may feel so far away and distant, and something that's probably feeling like this is never going to happen, I promise you, when you just dream, it gives you this inspiration to want to do better and get out of the situation that you're in. 8 is contact creditors. This one is important, especially if you are in credit card debt and a lot of financial trouble. I know the inclination is to want to run away and hide and just ignore the problem, but I want to encourage you not to do that. And I know it can feel scary, especially if you haven't been through this before, but it's really important to know what bills are coming in. And if you can't pay the minimums, it's so important for you to contact the creditor, the company, and let them know what's going on. The earlier you can call them, the better your chances of getting payment options and knowing it up front. If you wait and interest continues to accrue, your payment options will become less and less in terms of what's available to you that they can offer for you to do instead of paying the minimum. Because let's face it, some people are in a position where, like, I don't even know how I'm going to pay the minimum. There's no money coming in. But if you wait and you wait, and especially if it gets to the point where it goes into collections, it's kind of too late. So what I'm saying is, the better negotiation power you will have, the earlier you confront this. I know it may feel scary, but it's so important that you just call that 800 number, and just find out, hey, this is my situation. And trust me, I'm sure they're getting a lot of these calls. So I know it can feel embarrassing and it's so frustrating, but again, you know, take a deep breath and accept the situation, and just realize that you're putting yourself in a position of empowerment where you know, and you're putting the best effort forward to get out of it. So it's really important that you contact them, because as the clock runs down, you have less options. And so the name of the game is to act quickly and do something about it. Now, these last 4 things I want to share with you are going to be more about being kind to yourself. And I'm like, what's this got to do with money? You know, a lot of times I talk about money, like I said in the beginning, that it's not just numbers. There is such an important topic and subject around having a good, healthy, conscious relationship with our money. And I think so often we're so caught up in spreadsheets and budgets and, you know, numbers and things like that. And those are all important. But I think something that is very important for us to keep in mind is the psychology side of it, and how are we treating ourselves. And so I don't know if this might be new for you, for some of you, but for me, I really found it fascinating, because to see the relationship with money being so just as important, if not more important, and the money mindset that we bring into our financial situation can just set the tone for so many things. Okay, so you know, there's a lot of emotions behind money and our relationship with it, and so it's important for us to recognize that. And so number 9 is, don't beat yourself up. I know that there's many of us who hang on to the past, including myself. I've been guilty of that, where in my situation with a divorce, I was blaming myself for many years in the beginning that, why did I let that happen? Why did I let him do that? You know, I was, and here is the thing that was so horrible and embarrassing about it. It's like, I was a financial advisor at the time, and yet I still allowed some of these things to happen and some decisions to slip through the cracks. But then it just comes to show, have some grace on yourself, because if if a former financial advisor could have done that and have all that happen, forgive yourself. We all make mistakes. We live on planet Earth. We're human beings. We're not perfect. And so, you know, everybody makes mistakes at some point, and the financial setbacks are sometimes out of our control. But it's also important not to beat yourself up, because if this was so easy, you know, everything would be perfect and everybody would just go on. It would just be a matter of like going to Google and downloading a spreadsheet, and there shouldn't be any financial problems in this world, which is not true. And so it's that this country, all of us, it's not that we have a money problem, we have a money management problem. I think to add to it also that we have such a duty and obligation to ourselves to improve our money mindset and our way of looking at money and our relationship with money and how we approach things. So, you know, don't beat yourself up, avoid dwelling on what happened or what you could have done differently. Recognize the mistakes and learn the lessons, but don't end up making them again. I think that's the important part of it. I'm not saying, you know, forget it and just move on. I'm saying learn the lessons. Yeah, that happened, because all our experiences shape and form us and what we think and how we think. You know, accept your mistakes without judgment so you can move on and direct your energy elsewhere. Okay. And so, because, you know, beating yourself up is not going to do any good. And, you know, we continue to go down this road of making more mistakes, the more we put ourselves in condemnation. And so this is why it's so important to forgive and allow yourself to make progress moving forward. Because sometimes when we start to deal with our problems, in whether it's, you know, bad addictions or, you know, overeating or getting involved with alcohol, just imagine those coping mechanisms add up, and then it starts to derail your spending plan. So as you can see, it's like this big, massive snowball, not going in the right direction. Number 10 is celebrate wins. What do I mean by that? Celebrating wins. So if you are creating these amazing goals, if you are creating this plan, if you are cutting back on certain things, you know, celebrate that, recognize that. I'm not saying go out and, you know, blow a bunch of money. Now, if it's in your budget and you happen to have some of it, then treat yourself to something nice. You know, maybe it's a nice dinner you decide not to cook. But be very mindful, obviously, of the money that you're spending, but celebrate those wins, you know, recognize those little steps along the way. Recognize like, hey, you know what? I didn't even go out and buy anything today. And I've seen some people do like a no day, like spend challenge. And it's like, that happens to me often. I mean, I can go days without buying anything. But, you know, I find that there's some people that cannot not spend. So if that's something that you want to challenge yourself with, go for it. I think it's, you know, challenges are fun and it can be effective, but celebrate yourself, celebrate those wins, because it took a lot for you to even stop and recognize the situation that you're in and to do something about it. Because there's a lot of people that don't care. There are a lot of people out there that don't even want to do anything. They don't want to get educated. They don't want to take action. And they want to continue to be the victim and not be the victor. And that's not you, because you are here at the Comeback Champions Summit. So again, I want to congratulate you and commend you, but celebrate those wins, no matter how small they are, because and this is what I want to say too, a side note. Do not do that. It was nothing. Own that. Own that. If it's something small, own it. It's so important that you do not minimize that and have this attitude of gratitude that you did something huge. It's so important for you to do that. Okay, I think I drilled that one in. So 11 is take care of yourself. And this is about not neglecting your basic needs. It's almost like, it almost feels like so obvious to say, but I think we are so caught up in being busy all the time that we forget to take care of ourselves. I have friends who forget to eat, friends who don't sleep, and it's just like, it's so important that you do this for yourself. And when you are stressed and you start to neglect your basic needs, again, this actually can make your financial situation worse. There have been studies shown that health is strongly related to your financial situation. So the more you don't take care of yourself, the more your finances are affected. And so it's so important for you to get lots of sleep, lots of rest, and you know, avoid unhealthy habits, because those also can cost a lot, and then you're blowing your spending plan. And, you know, it's just, and you're not going to feel good when you look at the bills. I know there's been times when I look at sometimes a statement, I'm like, oh my gosh, why did I buy that? That was so stupid. I didn't need that. Or why did I buy that? You know, it's this unconscious spending that had no intentional meaning behind it. Now, is that always a bad thing? No. But again, if depending on our situation, it's very important for us to understand, why are we purchasing the things that we're purchasing? And so it's important to stay mentally and physically in shape. And it's so important to take control of these things, because it does affect your money, believe it or not. So drink water, get sleep, get rest. And if you are, you know, into praying and meditating, this is a whole nother workshop I could do. It's important for you to develop a morning routine. I think it's so important. Like, for example, every day, religiously, what I do is I spend time with God, I read a devotional, I work out, and then I you know, I also meditate, and then I have coffee, black coffee, and then I go on with my day. And I find that when I start my day like that, being still and just spending time with my higher power, God, I'm just grounded. I'm so much more stable. I feel like I'm more in control. And I'm telling you, I'm not saying that my life is perfect. There are many problems and issues that I've dealt with, things that I feel like, okay, I have no idea what I'm doing. But when I do that, there's this peace and calmness that comes over me and helps me to make really great decisions. It also is a time where these amazing creative ideas come. And so I want to challenge you to give yourself that gift to do that. Just even, and maybe some people out there, you're probably like, I don't even know how to meditate. I'm telling you, one of the best places you can go to is YouTube, and put in like 5-minute meditation. If you can even just do 5 minutes, because I know sometimes some people, when they started, they're like, I'm gonna fall asleep. So it takes practice, you know. And so for my morning routine, it's about 2.5, 3 hours total time with the workout and everything. But when you give yourself that gift, this is the gift of self-care. And it just makes such a huge difference in your life, I promise you. So that's number 11, take care of yourself. And finally, the last one is number 12, and this is finding support. I think it's very, very important that you surround yourself with people that will love and support you. It's very important that you find friends, family members, you know, coaches, mentors that you can surround yourself with for support, especially if they've gone through a situation like this before, somebody that can either hold you accountable. And, you know, if that's not enough, you know, it's okay for you. I really believe it's okay for you to, you know, reach out for help from a financial professional, a licensed one, and just either get a consultation, sit down with them and find out, like, what do I need to do? Because let's face it, this is kind of scary for some people. This is a very confusing place. I know that many times when I have a conference or a workshop or whatnot, and I always ask, okay, well, who took a, you know, financial class growing up or in school, in, you know, whatever. And it's usually 1 or 2 people that raise their hands, sometimes none. And I'll always ask them, well, how did you learn? That's great. And it's always the case is the mom was an accountant, or, you know, the dad worked in a bank. It's something like that. Or, you know, my uncle was a CPA. And then that's about it. Everybody else is just like, I never learned it. I don't know anything. And, you know, even from myself, which is, you know, the whole story, which I'm not going to share right now, but the whole story of how I ended up getting into this field, because I felt that about 20 years ago. I felt that, oh my goodness, this isn't right. I don't know anything about the money. I know how to make it. What am I supposed to do with it? I know I can't build wealth if I'm just putting this in the bank in a checking account. And that started my journey of learning and knowing that, like, okay, if I'm feeling this way, I'm sure there are people out there that feel this way. Not only that, it was important for me to break it down in plain English, because I've seen too many people tell me, and, you know, over the years, where they were intimidated by other financial professionals, or they felt like they were talking over their head. And then that ended up causing them to not want to ask questions, because there's people that feel like, well, I don't want to ask a stupid question, or I don't want to feel stupid. So it is important for you to feel comfortable with the person that you're working with, and to ask, because this is very personal. This is, you know, this is your money. And so, you know, work with somebody that you can trust and feel comfortable asking questions and getting, you know, some guidance from. And so let me just recap real quick. what the 12 things are. And so I'm going to wrap it up pretty soon. So the first one is number 1, don't overreact. Don't overreact. 2, assess your financial situation. 3, build up your emergency fund or replenish it. 4 is create a slimmed down spending plan. 5 is do it yourself. So if you used to hire somebody and outsource things, see how many of those things you can do yourself. 6 is to remember to set your financial priorities. And 7 is to create a financial plan, especially if you have a partner. And still, if you're single by yourself, still create one. 8, contact those creditors. Do not avoid them. Reach out to them and get your options and find out what those are. 9, don't beat yourself up. Forgive yourself for the past and allow yourself to move forward. 10 is celebrate your wins. Remember, no matter how big or small, the small ones are so important. They totally count. And then 11 is to take care of yourself. Give yourself that gift of self-care. And then 12 is find support. So I hope that these 12 things are going to encourage you to help you recover from whatever your financial setback is. And even if you aren't in a financial setback, there's always room for improvement. There's always ways to do better. And so I just want to say thank you. If you want to reach out to me, if you have any questions, you can reach me on Facebook or Instagram at Jen Money Coach, Jen Money Coach, or you can reach me on my website at www.jenmoneycoach.com. I'm happy to answer questions. I would love to support you on your journey to financial freedom. And so please drop me a line. Let me know your thoughts. I would love to connect with you. And I'll definitely put a link for your free gift. I have some freebies that I would love to send to you. And so make sure that you click on the link. I'm sure they're going to provide that as well. So with that said, I hope that you enjoy the rest of the Comeback Champion Summit. Thank you for joining me. I hope this encourages you and inspires you to take care of yourself and to take care of your money. Thank you.